weeks, we have spoken about the various sectors of the tourism industry with special emphasis on hospitality. But when we did start talking about introduction to tourism, we were talking about the various sectors which fall in this umbrella. And one of the sectors that we did talk about was event management. And today, our total emphasis on this whole session, okay, the pre-lunch and the post-lunch session will be with reference to event management. Now, how did event management grow into an industry? I'm sure all of us are aware about, small parties, starting from kitty parties at home or birthday parties, housewarming activities, to big events like probably the Olympics or the beauty pageantry, to name some. Now, did all these things start off in a professional way? Probably if you start recalling things as far as the event sector goes, nobody thought about having a big kitty party, inviting a proper event manager to do the job for you. Okay, 10 years ago or 20 years ago, we wouldn't have bothered about calling people to come and do these parties at home. But nowadays, it's not so. Okay, before we actually go and delve into the fact that, what are the reasons why event sector has prospered so much, let us actually go into the beginning or the historic perceptions about how this event industry came into existence. Talking about the event sector, from a business perspective, it all started with, making an impact or trying to make policy changes at the government level. So all of us know that when individuals go and make a request to the government in terms of trying to change policies, it might not be so effective. So people got together, people who ran common businesses got together and formed associations. They formed associations and made representatives collectively to the government, to bring about changes in policies or implement new policies. So these associations, to implement the policies or draft these policies started meeting very frequently. And when they did start meeting frequently, they required so many arrangements that had to be done so that, the meeting went off very smooth. So you have, your food services roped in, you have your secretarial services roped in, you have your boardrooms being done. So you had people who were engaged to do all these things. Okay, so that's how, with the beginning of the associations, you have the beginning of the formal, organized event business coming into existence. And believe me, it all started off maybe say 40, 50 years ago. And in the last 4 or 5 decades, if you can recall, the event sector does not fall into any organized kind of a sector. It's highly fragmented. For instance, if you take an event, let us say a big fat Indian wedding, what goes into it? While the whole event itself might be given to a person who is known, who has been very successful in this area, this person or the major player usually subcontracts it to, as per the work. He might give a subcontract to a food service person, he might give a subcontract to an audiovisual person, he might give a subcontract to a special effects person. So the people who are subcontracted to usually contribute towards the fragmented sector of the industry, while you have the big players who actually contribute towards the organized sector. And you have very few names, if you're talking about the organized sector in the event business. Probably one of the names that you could recall as far as the Indian scenario goes in this recently concluded and much talked about Commonwealth Games is a company called 360 Degrees or Whizcraft. Whizcraft was the major company that was actually given this contract to make sure the opening and the closing ceremonies of this particular event came out well. And I'm sure that irrespective of the bad press that the Commonwealth Games got, the opening and the closing ceremonies are one of the two of the most talked about in terms of perfection, in terms of the impact that it had to people who watched it. So that's about, you know, the organized sector. But when you're talking about the fragmented sector, a whole lot of other people would have contributed into making this particular event. Now, having talked about, you know, how events came into existence, you know, today's lecture is basically on a concept called MICE. M-I-C-E. MICE is an anagram for meetings, incentives, conventions and exhibitions, and they contribute a whole lot of things as far as, you know, revenues for event management goes. And talking about MICE markets, okay, it's supposed to be looked at as the sunrise industry, not only in India but across the whole globe. And all the new areas or all the new districts which are coming up in a very big way in the in terms of industries is a very, very nice playground, you know, for MICE markets to happen. And talking about MICE markets, like I told you, it's the organizations and associations which actually contribute to making these MICE markets happen. And if you talk about the characteristics of, you know, the MICE industry, it's exactly similar to, you know, the characteristics of the hospitality sector per se. For instance, you have round-the-clock operations. You know, MICE markets operate round the clock, and when the whole world is enjoying, then people who are working in MICE markets are actually doing their job. And it's 364 by 7. It has got a whole lot of service-related activities that are packed into it. And as far as the scope goes, it's something which I actually touched upon in the beginning of this lecture. I was talking about, you know, the scope can vary from, you know, a small birthday party or a kitty party at home, right through to, you know, organizing the Olympics or the beauty pageantry or Grammy Awards or Oscar Awards. I mean, there's no limit to it. Now, to substantiate what I've actually spoken to you in the last few minutes, just let's have a look at, you know, a graphical representation of what I have told you just now. Yeah. कितना minutes का है? No, I'm through. क्या कर रहे हैं?